Tonight, we travel back to the greatest sanctuary of knowledge ever built, the lost Library of Alexandria. But first, come in from the cold, shake off the weight of the day. Tell me, where have you journeyed from? You are safe now. The outside world cannot find you here. Only the warmth of the fire remains. The volume we need is already waiting on the desk, bound in cracked leather, smelling faintly of papyrus and desert sand. Let us open it together. Our story begin. Close your eyes and let the cool, dark silence of the library surround you. Breathe in the scent of old paper and beeswax candles. We are traveling back, far back before the shelves were heavy with scrolls, to a time when there was only the wind and the white noise of the waves. Imagine standing on a strip of land between the vast marsh of Lake Mariotis and the endless blue of the Mediterranean Sea. It is the year 331 before the Common Era. The sun here is not a gentle caress. It is a heavy golden blanket that presses down on your shoulders, smelling of heated sand and salt spray. Here stands a young man, his hair bleached by the sun, his eyes two different colors, one dark as the night, one blue as the sky. This is Alexander. He is breathless, not from exertion, but from the sheer weight of a vision that has just descended upon him. While his generals see only a sleepy fishing village called Rakotis, occupied by seabirds and the quiet rhythm of the tides, Alexander sees something else entirely. Can you hear the crunch of dry limestone beneath his sandals? He walks slowly, tracing a line in the dust. He does not have chalk to mark the boundaries of his dream, so his soldiers offer him barley meal from their rations. He sprinkles the grain upon the earth, drawing the curve of future walls, the straight lines of grand avenues, the sacred spaces for gods yet to be invited. The birds descend from the sky, white gulls with hungry cries, pecking at the barley lines. His soothsayers tremble, fearing an omen of destruction, but Alexander laughs. His laughter is carried away by the sea breeze. He knows this is a sign that his city will feed the world, not just with grain, but with ideas. He stands there, the salt drying on his skin, looking out at the island of Pharos in the distance. He imagines a lighthouse that will outshine the moon. He imagines a grid of streets positioned perfectly to catch the Etesian winds, cooling the stone on hot afternoons like this one. He is dreaming of a knot that will tie the mystique of Egypt to the logic of Greece, a place where the heavy incense of the Nile temples mixes with the crisp, salt air of the Aegean. It is a dream of unity, forged not by the sword, but by the stone, the spirit. But dreams, like the barley meal in the sand, are fragile things. Alexander turns away, leaving the outline of his city to the wind, destined to conquer the east and never to return to see the marble rise. Yet the dream remains, hanging in the humid air, waiting for hands steady enough to build it. The seasons turn, the years drift by like leaves on a slow river, and the great conqueror is gone. The empire is shattered, divided among his generals like a loaf of bread torn apart by hungry hands. But here, in the land of the pharaohs, one man steps forward to claim his portion. Ptolemy the First, known as Soter or the Saviour. Picture him now, no longer the young soldier covered in the dust of battle, but a king seated on a throne of ivory and gold. The room is cool, shielded from the Egyptian heat by thick walls of stone. Shadows dance in the corners, cast by oil lamps that smell of olive and crushed herbs. He runs a hand over his face, feeling the lines that worry and war have etched there. The crown on his head feels heavy, heavier than any helmet he ever wore. He looks out from his palace balcony over the city of Alexandria, now rising from the sand. He hears the distant clamour of masons, the strike of chisel on stone, the shouting of sailors in the growing harbour. But Ptolemy knows that stone can crumble. He knows that empires built solely on the strength of spears are destined to rust and fade. He remembers the teachings of his youth, the voice of Aristotle echoing in the courtyards of Macedonia. He craves something more enduring than conquest. He wants legitimacy. He wants to be more than just a Macedonian warlord sitting on an Egyptian throne. He wants to weave himself into the tapestry of history, to be seen as the true successor to the pharaohs and the guardian of Hellenic culture. In the quiet of the night, when the city sleeps and only the sea is awake, he paces his chambers. The marble floor is cold beneath his feet. He realizes that to rule the world truly, one must rule its mind. He needs a weapon that does not dull, a fortress that cannot be breached by siege engines. He dreams of a kingdom of knowledge where the wealth is measured not in gold coins, but in the accumulated wisdom of mankind. He wants to trap the universe itself within the walls of his city. And then, fate brings a wanderer to his door. It is a stormy night, the rain lashing against the shutters, washing the dust from the palm trees. A ship docks in the turbulent harbour, carrying a man who has lost everything, Demetrius of Phaleron, once the ruler of Athens, a student of Aristotle's own school, now an exile, cast out by the fickle tides of politics. He arrives wrapped in a cloak damp with sea water, smelling of stale ship air and old parchment. His face is gaunt, his eyes burning with a fierce intellectual hunger that exile has not dampened. He carries no gold, no armies, only the treasures of his mind and the bitterness of his fall. Ptolemy welcomes him, not as a beggar, but as a kindred spirit. Imagine them sitting together in a private chamber, the fire crackling in the hearth, casting long, flickering shadows on the walls. A servant pours wine, dark and rich, into silver goblets. The sound of the liquid filling the cup is the only noise in the room for a long moment. Demetrius speaks. His voice is low, smooth, hypnotic, the voice of a philosopher who is used to holding an audience in the palm of his hand. He speaks of Athens, of the Lyceum, of the great collections of books that fueled the minds of giants. He paints a picture in the air with his hands. "Create a place," he whispers, leaning closer to the king, "where all the books of all the peoples of the world are gathered, a living memory of the human race." He unfolds a scroll on the low table between them. It is not a map of lands to be conquered, but a diagram of a different sort. He traces the shape of a Museion, a temple to the Muses. He describes grand colonnades where scholars can walk and debate as the sun sets. He describes quiet rooms filled with the scratching of quills where the silence is sacred. He describes a library. Ptolemy listens, entranced. He sees in Demetrius's words the key to the immortality he seeks. The exile offers the king a way to make Alexandria the center of the world, the new Athens, the brain of the Mediterranean. Can you feel the electricity in that room? The moment when an idea catches fire. The smell of the burning lamp oil seems to sweeten. The wine is forgotten. They talk until the dawn bleeds grey light through the curtains. In that quiet room, while the rest of the world sleeps, the seed of the Great Library is planted. It begins not with a shout, but with a whisper between two men who understand the terrifying power of the written word. Let the heat settle on your skin. Can you feel it? The intense dry heat of an Egyptian noon. It is a weight that presses against the earth, silencing the birds and sending the stray cats seeking the shadows beneath the carts. But here, in the royal quarter, in the Museion, the heat meets a coolness of a different kind. Walk with me through the gates. We are leaving the noise of the common city behind, the shouting of the fishmongers, the braying of donkeys, the dust of the unpaved streets. Here, the ground changes beneath your feet. It becomes smooth, unyielding, and cool. We are walking on polished limestone and marble, vast avenues that stretch out like rivers of white stone. In the height of the day, the Museion is blinding. The sun strikes the white marble columns and the plastered walls of the palaces, bouncing the light back with a ferocity that forces you to squint. It is a world of absolute pristine whiteness, broken only by the sharp, black geometry of shadows cast by the colonnades. Reach out your hand, touch the side of a pillar. It is warm, almost hot to the touch, retaining the energy of the sun god Ra. But step into the shade of the portico, and the air instantly drops in temperature. It is a shock to the senses, a sudden relief that makes you shiver pleasantly. The air here smells different. It does not smell of the harbour's rot or the desert's dust. It smells of ozone, of heated stone, and of the sea breeze that has been filtered through the manicured hedges of the royal gardens. It is a scent of order, a scent of power. Everything here is built on a scale designed to make a human feel small. The doorways are too tall for mere mortals. They are made for giants or gods. The silence is heavy, maintained by guards with bronze-tipped spears who stand as still as statues. The only sound is the rhythmic slapping of your own sandals against the stone, echoing off the walls, announcing that you are walking in the heart of the world. This is the shell, the protective casing. The white marble is the bone of the skull, hard and impenetrable, protecting the soft, delicate matter of the mind that lies within. Now, let us move deeper, past the administrative centres and the royal apartments. The stark white gives way to green, a lush, vibrant green that seems impossible at the edge of a desert. We are entering the Museion, the sanctuary dedicated to the Muses. The air becomes humid here, heavy with the perfume of blooming jasmine and the earthy, damp scent of watered soil. Listen, do you hear the water? Hidden fountains trickle softly, a constant, musical bubbling that masks the silence of the stone. The architecture changes, it opens up. We find ourselves wandering through the exedre. These are curved recesses, semicircular benches built of smooth stone, nestled into the walls of the garden walkways. They are designed for one purpose: conversation. Imagine sitting on one of these benches. The stone is cool against your back. Above you, the leaves of a date palm rustle in the gentle wind, casting dappled, moving shadows across your hands. Around you are the greatest minds of the age. You hear low murmurs, not shouting, but a steady, hypnotic hum of voices. To your left, a mathematician draws circles in the sand with a reed, whispering about the circumference of the earth. To your right, a poet recites a verse about the birth of stars, testing the rhythm of the words on the air. It is a symphony of thought. There is a sense of communal intimacy here. These men have travelled from the corners of the known world, from Athens, from Rhodes, from Sicily, to live together in this gilded cage. Follow the scent of roasting meat and fresh bread. It leads us to the great dining hall. This is the heart of their daily life. It is a long, high-ceilinged room where the clatter of silver spoons against ceramic plates echoes softly. The smell is rich and comforting. Spiced wine, honey, olive oil, and charred lamb. Here the debates continue over the breaking of bread. The atmosphere is thick with rivalry and camaraderie. You can hear the clink of a goblet being set down emphatically to make a point. You can hear the rustle of robes as a scholar leans forward to whisper a secret theory. It is a place where the hunger of the body and the hunger of the mind are fed simultaneously under the watchful eyes of the Ptolemies who pay for every morsel, every drop of wine, every moment of leisure. Leave the dining hall, leave the gardens. We must go to the sacred core. The sun is setting now, casting long orange beams through the high windows. We are entering the great hall of scrolls. Pause at the threshold. Close your eyes and breathe in. The smell is overwhelming. It hits you like a physical wave. It is the sharp, resinous, spicy scent of cedarwood. The oil of the cedar is rubbed onto the scrolls to keep the worms and insects at bay. It is the smell of preservation, a scent that says forever. Beneath the cedar, there is the dry, grassy smell of papyrus. Thousands upon thousands of dried river reeds, pressed and polished, and deeper still the faint metallic tang of ink and the sweetness of beeswax seals. Open your eyes. The room is vast, a cavern of shadows and golden light. The shelves, known as claustra, rise up, up, climbing the walls until they seem to touch the ceiling. They are like a honeycomb, a grid of wooden pigeonholes, each one housing a scroll. There are no books as we know them, no spines with titles. There are only the round ends of the scrolls, looking like circles of bone stacked in their niches. From each one hangs a small tag, a syllabus, dancing slightly in the draft, bearing the title and the author's name. The silence here is different from the silence of the Museion. It is not the silence of emptiness. It is a pregnant silence, a silence that is holding its breath. It is a silence made of a million sleeping voices waiting to be woken. Walk softly. Your footsteps are absorbed by the vastness of the room. You see a scholar standing by a shelf, illuminated by a single shaft of dusty light. Watch his hands. They are gentle, reverent. He pulls a scroll from its nest. Listen to the sound. It is a dry, crisp rustle, crackle, hiss. As he unrolls it, the papyrus protests slightly against the movement, a sound like dry leaves skittering over stone. He holds it open, the fibers of the plant catching the light, the black Greek letters marching in strict columns across the surface. Dust motes dance in the light beams, swirling in the air that has been displaced by the unrolling of history. Every movement here is slow. There is no rushing. To rush would be to tear the knowledge apart. You are standing in the memory of the world. The walls are lined with the souls of the dead, speaking in ink and reed. The quiet is absolute, broken only by that soft, rhythmic rustling, the sound of a mind connecting with another mind across the abyss of time. It is the heartbeat of Alexandria. Come with me now to the edge of the water. We leave the cool silence of the library and descend into the chaos of the great harbour. The air here is thick and aggressive. It tastes of salt brine, rotting seaweed, and the sharp, acrid smoke of tar boiling in iron pots to patch the hulls of ships. The sun beats down on the water, turning the waves into a blinding field of diamonds. The harbour is a forest of masts. Ships from every corner of the known world rock gently at their moorings. Heavy merchant vessels from Rhodes, sleek galleys from Athens, grain barges from the Nile Delta. They bring timber, wine, olive oil, and tin. But the king's men who march down the wooden docks are not looking for oil or wine. Listen to the heavy thud of their boots on the planks. They wear the royal insignia. They carry the authority of the pharaoh. Watch as they board a newly arrived merchant ship. The captain, a weather-beaten man with skin like old leather, steps forward, expecting a customs inspection for his cargo of spices. He opens his hands, ready to haggle over taxes. But the soldiers ignore the spices. They ignore the gold. They ask a single strange question. "Do you have any books?" The captain blinks. He points to a chest in his cabin, where he keeps a few battered scrolls of poetry to pass the long, lonely nights at sea, or perhaps a medical treatise on curing seasickness. The soldiers seize them. This is the royal decree of the ship's fund. Every vessel that enters the harbour of Alexandria must surrender its books, not for burning, but for the hunger of the library. Imagine the confusion of the sailors as their cherished stories are carried away. They are told that the scrolls will be taken to the scriptorium, copied, and the copies will be returned to them. The originals, however, the true treasures, will stay in the library, marked with a label that reads, "From the ships." It is a piracy of the mind. The library does not just collect, it confiscates. It demands the intellectual soul of every traveller. Feel the texture of the confiscated scroll in the soldier's hand. The papyrus is soft from the damp sea air, the edges frayed by the captain's thumb. It smells of the ocean. Soon it will smell of cedar and dust, trapped forever in the belly of the Great Library, a prisoner of the king's ambition. Turn your gaze away from the sea now. Look toward the horizon, where the roads stretch out into the dust of foreign lands. The library has long arms, and its fingers reach into the deepest shadows of the world. These are the agents of the library. They are not soldiers. They are scholars with the cunning of merchants and the purses of kings. They travel in caravans, wrapped in cloaks to shield them from the desert winds and the mountain snows. Picture one such agent. He has traveled for weeks. He arrives in a city in Greece, or perhaps Asia Minor. He does not go to the palaces. He goes to the quiet, dusty back streets. He visits the heirs of dead philosophers, the widows of poets, the bankrupt collectors who have nothing left but their rotting parchment. He carries a heavy leather bag. Listen to the sound it makes when he drops it onto a wooden table. Thud. It is the heavy, persuasive sound of gold. The agent is hunting the rarest game of all. He is looking for the lost works of the masters. He is looking for the private library of Aristotle. Imagine the scene in a dim, spider-webbed basement. The air is stale, smelling of dry rot and neglect. The owner of the house points to a stack of wooden crates covered in grime. The agent steps forward. His heart hammers against his ribs. His hands tremble as he lifts the lid. Inside, beneath layers of dust, lie the thoughts of the man who taught Alexander. The papyrus is brittle, yellowed like an old tooth. Silverfish scuttle away from the sudden light. The agent touches the scroll as if it were the cheek of a lover. He reads the opening lines, the Greek letters fading but legible. This is the source. This is the logic that organized the world. He pays the gold without haggling. He buys the crates, the shelves, the very dust that covers them. He packs them into chests lined with linen and spices to protect them on the journey home. These agents are ruthless. They strip cities of their heritage, leaving behind only the echo of wisdom. They are bringing the world's memory home to Alexandria, scroll by fragile scroll, transforming the wealth of the Ptolemies into a treasure that no thief can melt down. And where do these treasures go? Follow the trail of the scrolls back to the library, into the hidden heart of the machine. Enter the scriptorium. The silence here is not the silence of peace. It is the silence of intense, grueling concentration. It is a room filled with light, with vast windows positioned to catch the morning sun without letting in the direct, damaging heat. Rows upon rows of tables fill the hall. Bent over them are the copyists. There are hundreds of them. They are the bees in this hive, the ants building the hill. The air smells sharp and metallic. It is the smell of ink, a mixture of soot, gum, and water. It is the smell of fresh papyrus, grassy and clean. Listen closely. Do you hear it? It is a sound like rain falling on dry leaves. Scratch, scratch, dip, scratch. It is the sound of hundreds of reed pens known as calami moving in unison across the textured surface of the papyrus. Some scribes are copying by eye, looking at an ancient text and transcribing it letter by letter onto a fresh sheet. Their eyes are red-rimmed from strain. Their backs are permanently curved like the question marks they write. They must not make a mistake. To err is to corrupt the memory of the world. Others are working from dictation. A reader stands at the front of the room, holding a text. He speaks slowly, clearly, enunciating every syllable. The earth is a sphere, and 50 hands move at once. 50 pens dip into 50 ink pots. 50 wrists flex. The ink flows black and wet, soaking into the fibers of the reed paper. They are mass-producing knowledge. They are taking a single unique voice and multiplying it into a chorus. Watch the hands of a scribe. His fingers are stained black with ink. There is a callus on his middle finger, hard as stone, from where the pen rests day after day, year after year. He pauses to sharpen his nib with a small bronze knife. Scrape, scrape. Then he dips again. This is not just writing, it is an act of devotion. It is an act of preservation. Every stroke of the pen is a battle against time, a battle against forgetfulness. In this room, amidst the scratching and the smell of soot, the ship's fund copies are born, destined to be returned to the confused captains, while the pristine originals are whisked away to the cedar-scented shelves to sleep in safety until the end of the world. The sun climbs higher, but in the private chambers of the head librarian, the light remains soft, filtered through heavy drapes of purple linen. Step into this room. It is the nerve center of the intellectual world. The man who sits here is more than a scholar. He is a high priest. His official title echoes with a divine weight, the priest of the Muses. He does not merely manage books. He tends to the sacred fire of inspiration. He wears the robes of his office, heavy fabric that rustles with a silken whisper against the marble floor. Around his neck hangs a gold chain, cool against his skin, a reminder of the chain that binds him to the throne. Breathe in the air of this room. It smells of expensive incense, frankincense imported from the southern lands, mixed with the dry intellectual scent of old dust. It is a lonely scent. To be the head librarian is to stand on a peak, separated from the common scribes by authority and from the king by intellect. His duties are twofold, and both carry a terrible weight. With one hand he guards the past. He decides which scrolls are copied, which are preserved, and which are left to fade into obscurity. He holds the power of memory. With the other hand he molds the future. Listen to the sound of footsteps echoing in the corridor. They are light, quick, impatient. A young boy enters. He is a prince, a future Ptolemy. He smells of sweat from the wrestling yard and the sweet oil used to groom his hair. The librarian must turn away from his beloved scrolls to look into the eyes of this boy. He must teach him. He must take the wisdom of the shelves, geometry, history, rhetoric, and pour it into this restless, dangerous vessel. He must tame the wolf cub. Imagine the tension in the room. The librarian points to a map of the stars. His voice is low, patient, steady. The prince listens, his fingers drumming a rhythm on the table. The fate of the kingdom rests on these lessons. If the librarian fails, the boy will grow into a tyrant. If he succeeds, the boy will be a philosopher king. The silence between their words is heavy with the destiny of nations. Leave the high chambers now. Descend into the belly of the library where the true battle against chaos is being fought. Here, the air is thick with dust. It coats the throat. It settles on the eyelashes. we find a man named Callimachus. He is not a king nor a priest, but a poet and a scholar with a mind like a razor and blade. He stands in the middle of a sea of scrolls. They are piled on tables, stacked on the floor, overflowing from baskets. It is a flood of words. Before Callimachus, the library was a treasure hoard, but it was a hoard without a map. Imagine trying to find a single poem about a rose in a room containing 10,000 scrolls of poetry. It was a despairing, impossible task. The knowledge was there, but it was lost in its own abundance. Callimachus is the man who weaves the thread through the labyrinth. Watch him work. His tunic is stained with ink. His fingers are dry and papery. He moves with a frantic, obsessive energy. He picks up a scroll, unrolls the first few inches, reads the opening lines, and then, this is the moment of magic, he classifies it. He is building the pinnacles, the tables. It is a monumental work, not just a list, but a geography of the human mind. He divides the chaos into continents, rhetoric, or epic, tragedy, comedy, medicine. Listen to the scratch of his pen. It is a sharp, defining sound. He writes the author's name. He writes the first line of the work. He counts the lines of the text, measuring the weight of the thought. He adds a biographical note, tethering the work to the life of the man who wrote it. He is writing the first catalogue in history. He is teaching the scrolls how to speak to one another. Look at the shelves now. Because of him, they are changing. Small clay tags hang from the end of each scroll, dangling like strange fruit. They bear the information Callimachus has systematized. Now, a scholar can walk into this room and, with a glance, find the path to the knowledge he seeks. The air around Callimachus feels charged with static. It is the feeling of order being imposed on entropy. It is the exhaustion of a man who is trying to put the entire universe into alphabetical order, one scroll at a time. Now, let the scene shift. Let your mind travel north, across the sea, to the rocky citadel of Pergamon. There is a rival library growing there, a hungry upstart challenging the glory of Alexandria. The king of Egypt, Ptolemy, sits in his palace. The jealousy in his heart is cold and hard. He cannot bear the thought of another flame shining as bright as his own. He decides to choke the rival. He signs a decree. It is an embargo. No more papyrus for Pergamon. Egypt controls the Nile. Egypt controls the river reed. Egypt controls the paper of the world. By cutting off the supply of papyrus, Ptolemy believes he can starve the minds of Pergamon, silence their poets, and leave their shelves empty. But necessity is the mother of invention. Fly to Pergamon now. The air here is different. It does not smell of the grassy, sweet Nile reed. It smells of the slaughterhouse. It smells of lime, of scraped flesh, of tension. denied the plant, the scholars of Pergamon turn to the beast. Watch the workers in the tanneries of Pergamon. It is a visceral, bloody process. They take the skins of sheep and calves, they soak them in lime water to remove the hair. The smell is pungent, stinging the nose. They stretch the wet skin over wooden frames. Listen to the sound of the tension, the creak of the wood, the groan of the hide as it is pulled tight, tighter, until it is as taut as a drum. They take crescent-shaped knives, lunellum, and they scrape the skin. Scrape, scrape, scrape. They remove every trace of fat, every blemish. They sand it with pumice stone until it is velvety smooth. They have created pergamentum, parchment. Run your fingers over it in your mind. Papyrus was brittle, fibrous, with a grain that resisted the pen. It cracked if you folded it. But parchment is smooth, strong, and supple. It is skin. It feels alive. It can be written on, scraped clean, and written on again. It can be bound into a book, a codex, instead of a scroll. Ptolemy's jealousy has backfired. In trying to stop the flow of knowledge, he has inadvertently forced the creation of a medium that will outlast his own empire. While the papyrus of Alexandria will rot in the damp and burn in the fire, the parchment of Pergamon will carry the words of the ancients through the dark centuries to come. The rivalry of kings has changed the texture of history, from the brittle reed of the river to the durable skin of the flock. It is the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. The sun hangs directly overhead, a blazing eye that stares down at the city of Alexandria without blinking. The heat is a physical presence, a heavy, shimmering curtain that distorts the air above the marble pavement. Walk with me into the deepest part of the library gardens. Here, amidst the palm trees that offer scant relief, stands a man named Eratosthenes. He is the third librarian, a man of immense intellect, often teasingly called Beta by his rivals, implying he is second best at everything. But today he stands alone at the pinnacle of human thought. He is not reading a scroll. He is staring at the ground. Specifically, he is staring at a simple vertical rod, a gnomon planted firmly in the earth. He is waiting. The air is still. Not a leaf moves. The cicadas are screaming their high-pitched song in the heat, a relentless rhythm that marks the passing seconds. Eratosthenes wipes a bead of sweat from his brow. He is thinking of a well, hundreds of miles away in the city of Syene, far to the south. He knows that at this exact moment, on this specific day, the sun is shining directly into that well, illuminating the water at the very bottom, casting no shadow at all. He looks back at his rod. Here, in Alexandria, there is a shadow. It is a small, dark sliver of shade stretching out from the base of the stick. To anyone else, it is just a shadow, a meaningless patch of darkness, but to Eratosthenes, it is a key. He kneels in the dust. Can you feel the grit of the hot sand under his knees? He takes a measuring cord. His hands are steady despite the heat. He measures the angle of the shadow. 7 degrees and 12 minutes, 1/50th of a circle. He closes his eyes. In his mind, the noise of the garden fades. The cicadas fall silent. He sees the world not as a flat map, but as a vast hanging sphere. He draws lines in his imagination connecting the sun, the well in Syene, and the stick in Alexandria. With nothing but a stick and his mind, he is wrapping a measuring tape around the entire world. He calculates the distance, 250,000 stadia. He opens his eyes. He looks at his hands, trembling slightly now. He has just held the earth in his palm. He has weighed the planet. The shadow on the ground seems to vibrate with significance. He stands up, brushing the dust from his tunic, carrying the secret of the earth's circumference in his heart, a giant walking among men who still believe the world ends at the horizon. Leave the blinding sun now. Step under the wide, shaded portico where the air is cooler and smells of limestone dust and dry reeds. Here, the noise is different. It is the sound of scratching. Scrape, scrape, pause. A group of young men sit on low stools, their bodies tense with concentration. In the center of them stands an older man, his beard grey and unkempt, his robe simple. This is Euclid. He does not speak of gods or myths. He speaks of lines that never meet. He speaks of points that have no size. He is teaching them the architecture of reality. Look at the floor. It is covered in a layer of fine sand, smoothed out to create a blackboard. Euclid holds a long, thin reed. He bends down. The students lean forward, holding their breath. With a fluid, practiced motion, he draws a circle. It is perfect. A closed loop of absolute symmetry. In the messy, chaotic world of Alexandria, a world of rot, politics, and changing tides, this circle is a window into a different realm, a realm of pure truth. He draws a triangle inside it. He begins to speak, his voice dry and precise like the rustling of parchment. Let it be postulated, he begins. He is building a ladder of logic. Step by step, he leads the minds of his students upward. If this is true, then that must be true. And if that is true, then this third thing cannot be false. One of the students, a prince used to getting his way, sighs with impatience. He asks the question that everyone thinks but dares not say. Is there no easier way to learn this? No shortcut for a man of my rank? Euclid stops. The silence in the portico becomes heavy. He looks at the prince with eyes that have stared at the infinite. He does not raise his voice. He merely says, "There is no royal road to geometry." The words hang in the air, harder than the stone columns. Here, in the shadow of the library, the hierarchy of the world is dissolved. There is only the hierarchy of the mind. The proof requires the same labor from a king as it does from a beggar. He turns back to the sand. He draws another line. The scratch of the reed is the only sound, a sound of truth being etched into the world, one theorem at a time. The students exhale, their minds expanding, stretching to hold the shapes that Euclid pulls from the invisible air. Now we must go to a place of deeper quiet, a place that is hidden away from the casual visitor. The air here is cool and smells faintly of camphor, washed stone, and strange, bitter herbs used to mask the scent of decay. We are entering the domain of Herophilus. The room is dimly lit to keep the temperature down. On a stone table lies a figure covered in a linen sheet. This is not a place of horror. It is a place of profound, trembling reverence. Herophilus stands by the table. He is a physician who has dared to do what no one else would. He has dared to look inside the machine of the human body. He lifts the sheet gently, exposing an arm. He places his fingers on the wrist. Silence. He is listening to the rhythm of life. Before him, the pulse was a mystery, a random fluttering, but Herophilus has brought a water clock, a clepsydra, into the room. He measures the beats against the dripping of the water. Drop, thump, drop, thump. He realizes it is music. The body has a tempo, a meter. It varies with fever, with age, with emotion. He is decoding the song of the heart. He moves his hands further. He traces the thin white threads that run beneath the skin, the nerves. For centuries, men thought the heart was the seat of the soul, the center of thought. Herophilus leans in closer. The light from the oil lamp flickers, casting dancing shadows on the walls. He whispers to his students, pointing to the delicate web of nerves connecting to the brain. Here, he breathes. Not the heart, the brain. This is the governor. It is a terrifying, beautiful realization. The soul is not a fire in the chest, it is a spark in the skull. He traces the optic nerve, the pathway of sight, following it from the eye back into the darkness of the mind. He is mapping the geography of pain and sensation just as Eratosthenes mapped the earth. He handles the tissues with the gentleness of a lover, separating the membranes, revealing the chambers of the brain. He finds a confluence of sinuses at the back of the skull, a meeting place of blood and life. In the future, it'll be named after him, the torcular Herophili. But for now, it is just a secret he shares with the dead. There is no revulsion here, only awe. The realization that we are made of valves, pumps, and strings. In the quiet of this room, Herophilus is not just a doctor. He is an explorer standing on the shore of the greatest mystery of all, the vessel of human consciousness. The wind changes. Can you feel it shifting? For centuries, the breeze blowing into the harbour of Alexandria brought the scents of distant spices, exotic cedar, and the salt of open trade. It was a wind of curiosity, but now, in the year 48 before the Common Era, the wind brings the smell of iron. It brings the metallic, coppery scent of blood and the heavy, grinding sound of hobnailed boots on stone. The civil war of Rome has spilled over the edge of the world and landed on these white shores. It arrives in the form of one man, Julius Caesar. Picture him standing on the prow of his galley as it slices through the harbour waters. He is not young. His face is lined with the maps of 100 campaigns. His eyes are hard, calculating, seeing the city not as a monument of wisdom, but as a chessboard. He wears the imperator's cloak, a slash of violent red against the blue of the sea. He steps onto the dock and the city holds its breath. The usual chatter of the marketplace dies away. The arguments of the philosophers in the colonnades fall silent. Even the seagulls seem to circle warily. He brings with him the legions. Listen to the rhythm of their march. Sinister, dexter, sinister, dexter, left, right. It is a machine made of men. They move with a terrifying discipline, their armour clinking softly, a sound like 1,000 coins dropping into a purse. They occupy the royal quarter. They turn the palaces into barracks. The library, once a sanctuary where the only weapon was a sharp wit, now finds itself surrounded by the pilum and the gladius. The scholars look out from their high windows and see the courtyard filled with foreign soldiers who do not speak Greek, who do not care for Homer, who know only the logic of the shield wall. There is a tension in the air that makes the skin prickle. It is the static electricity of a coming storm. The Egyptians are angry. The young pharaoh's army is gathering in the streets, a mob pressing against the palace walls. Caesar is trapped. The hunter has become the prey. The air in the palace grows hot and stale, smelling of nervous sweat and polished leather. The doors are barred. The great siege of Alexandria has begun, and the Muses are holding their breath, terrified of the god of war who now sleeps in their bed. Night falls, but there is no darkness. The city is alive with the flickering of thousands of torches. The noise is a constant roar, like the sea crashing against a cliff. The shouting of the mob, the clashing of spears against shields, the cries of the wounded. Caesar stands on a balcony overlooking the harbour. His face is illuminated by the orange glow of a brazier. He is outnumbered. He is surrounded, and he sees the danger floating in the water. The Egyptian fleet, 72 ships of war, swaying in the harbour, ready to cut off his escape, ready to starve him out. He makes a decision. It is cold. It is logical. It is the calculation of a general, not a lover of books. To survive, the enemy fleet must die. Burn them, he whispers. The order travels down the chain of command. It moves from general to centurion, from centurion to soldier. Down on the docks, men run with torches dipped in pitch. Can you smell the sulphur, the thick, choking scent of tar? The soldiers hurl the torches onto the decks of the Egyptian triremes. The wood is old and dry, seasoned by years of sun and salt. It drinks the fire. At first it is just a small crackle, a sound like dry twigs snapping underfoot. Then a whoosh. A flower of orange light blooms in the darkness. The fire leaps from sail to sail, climbing the masts like a living thing, a squirrel of flame racing up a tree. The heat begins to radiate across the water. It pushes against the night air, a physical wall of warmth. The pitch boils and pops. The screams of the sailors mix with the roaring of the fire. The wind catches the flames. This is the tragedy. The wind does not care for strategy. It blows where it wills. It picks up the embers, millions of glowing red fireflies, and dances with them. It carries them away from the ships. It carries them toward the docks, toward the warehouses. These are not just any warehouses. These are the apothecary near the harbour. They are filled with grain, yes, but they are also filled with overflow. Scrolls waiting to be catalogued. Scrolls destined for export. Copies of the great works prepared for the ships. The fire jumps the gap between water and land. It tastes the stone. It finds the wood of the warehouse doors. It hungers. High above, in the safety of the Museion, the scholars are watching. Imagine standing next to Aristarchus or Didymus at a narrow window. The glass is warm to the touch. Their faces are illuminated by the flickering, hellish light from the harbour below. They are silent. What words can describe the burning of words? They see the fire licking the sides of the warehouses. It is a voracious beast, yellow and red and terrifyingly bright. It eats the roof beams. The structures collapse with a sound like thunder, sending a geyser of sparks high into the black sky. And then the smell hits them. It is not just the smell of burning wood. It is a distinct, tragic scent. It is the smell of burning papyrus. It is a scent like burning grass, but sharper, tinged with the chemical bite of ink and the sweetness of melting wax seals. It is the smoke of history. Thousands of scrolls are curling and blackening in that inferno. The tragedies of Sophocles, the comedies of Menander, the star charts of the Babylonians. They turn to ash in seconds. The wisdom that took centuries to accumulate. The thoughts that were scratched out in quiet rooms by candlelight are being unmade. The scholars watch the smoke rise. It is thick and black, blotting out the stars. It drifts over the city, a funeral shroud for the mind. Ash begins to fall on the balcony where they stand. It falls like black snow, soft and silent. A scholar reaches out a trembling hand and catches a flake of ash. He rubs it between his thumb and forefinger. It disintegrates into a grey smear. Was that a line of poetry? Was that a cure for a fever? Was that a prayer to a forgotten god? The fire rages on, indifferent to what it consumes. The glow is so bright that one could read a book by it in the middle of the night. A cruel irony. The library itself, the main halls, may be safe for now, shielded by stone walls, but the body of knowledge has taken a wound. A limb has been severed. The scholars weep. They do not weep with loud sobs, but with the quiet, crushing despair of men who know that something has gone out of the world and will never, ever return. The fire from the sea has claimed its tithe, and the morning sun will rise on a world that is a little darker, a little emptier than it was before. The smoke from the great fire has long since cleared. The ash that coated the marble streets has been washed away by the seasonal rains and the ceaseless sweeping of the wind. But the scar remains, a phantom limb pain in the mind of the city. The empty spaces on the shelves of the warehouses scream with silence. But history is a wheel that turns, and sometimes what is taken by the sword is returned by the heart. It is a few years later. The heavy, humid air of the harbour is filled with a new kind of anticipation. The Roman galleys are returning, but this time their ballistae are silent. Their decks are not cleared for war. They sit low in the water, heavy with a cargo more precious than grain or gold. Mark Antony has come back to the Queen. Picture them standing together on a terrace overlooking the sea. Cleopatra, the last pharaoh, sharp and brilliant as a cut diamond, and Antony, the Roman warlord, desperate to prove that he is not just a destroyer, but a builder. He knows the way to her heart is not through jewelry, for she has mountains of it. The way to her heart is through her mind. He gestures to the ships below. The cranes are swinging, lifting massive crates wrapped in oilcloth. For you, he might whisper, his voice rough with the accent of Rome. 200,000. 200,000 scrolls. But these are not just any scrolls, these are the spoils of war. Antony has stripped the shelves of the great rival library at Pergamon. He has gutted the intellectual soul of Asia Minor to patch the wound in Alexandria. Imagine the scholars down on the docks opening the first crates. The smell is different here. It is not the grassy, sweet scent of Egyptian papyrus. It is the pungent animal scent of parchment. Pergamon, denied the reed, had perfected the skin. These are scrolls made of calfskin, sheepskin, and goatskin. They are creamy, white, smooth as polished stone, and heavy. The librarians run their hands over the surface. It feels like flesh. It is durable. It is strong. There is a terrible irony in this gift. To heal the Library of Alexandria, another library had to die. The wisdom of the Stoics, the poetry of the Ionians, the histories of the East, all torn from their home in the north and brought here as a love token. Cleopatra watches the crates disappear into the storage vaults. She knows the cost. She knows that knowledge is power, and by accepting this gift, she is consolidating the memory of the world once again under her protection. The shelves fill up. The gaps are closed. The library breathes a sigh of relief, inhaling the scent of its defeated rival, growing fat on the tragedy of Pergamon. Now, let us turn our backs on the sea and walk inland. We must leave the polished, exclusive silence of the royal quarter. We are going to the district of Rakotis. This is the old heart of the city, the Egyptian quarter, where the streets are narrower, the shadows deeper, and the air smells of cumin, roasting garlic, and the heavy, sweet smoke of temple rituals. Here, rising from the earth like a man-made mountain, stands the Serapeum. It is a fortress of God and mind. While the Great Library by the sea is a place for the elite, for the scholars invited by kings, the Serapeum is the daughter library. It is the library of the city. It belongs to the gods, and through them, to the people. Climb the 100 steps of limestone. Feel the burn in your legs. It is a pilgrimage. At the top, pass between the massive columns thick as ancient oaks. The atmosphere here is darker, more mysterious. It is a temple dedicated to Serapis, that strange hybrid god, half Greek Zeus, half Egyptian Osiris. In the central hall his statue looms in the twilight. It is colossal, made of wood and precious metals, his skin dark blue to represent the mysteries of the underworld. On his head he wears a modius, a grain basket, symbolizing abundance. But look to the walls surrounding the god. Here, in the flickering light of thousands of votive lamps, are the niches. Here, the books. 40,000 scrolls reside here. They are the overflow, the duplicates, the fundamental texts that every citizen should know. Listen to the sound of this place. It is not the pin-drop silence of the Museion. It is a low, reverent hum. You hear the chanting of priests offering prayers for the flooding of the Nile. You hear the shuffling of sandals as a student from the city comes to read a commentary on Homer. You hear the whisper of a sick man praying for a cure, right next to a philosopher reading about anatomy. The sacred and the scientific are not separated here. They are fused. The smell of old papyrus mixes with the smell of myrrh and frankincense. The dust of the scrolls mingles with the pollen of flower offerings. This is the resilient heart of Alexandria. If the Great Library is the brain of the city, cold and brilliant, the Serapeum is its soul, warm and accessible. It is a place where a common man can touch the thoughts of a king under the watchful, dark eyes of a god who bridges two worlds. It is a sanctuary that says knowledge is also a form of prayer. Time flows like the water of the Nile, sometimes flooding, sometimes receding, but always moving. The Ptolemies fall. The asp bites the queen. The Roman legions take the city for good. The eagles of the legions replace the eagles of the lagoon. But look around. The sky has not fallen. We are now in the Roman era. It is the time of the Pax Romana, the peace of Rome. The city has changed. Masters, but it has not lost its purpose. The sun still sets over the harbour, turning the white marble to gold. The great lighthouse still sweeps its beam across the dark waves every night. And the library adapts. The Romans, for all their soldiers and roads, respect the weight of this place. The emperors, Claudius, Domitian, Hadrian, they send money, they send architects, they add new wings to the museum. They want to be seen as the patrons of this great machine. Walk through the colonnades now. The tunics have changed style, perhaps. The Latin language is heard mixing with the Greek, but the work continues. The science does not stop for politics. In a quiet observatory tower, a man named Claudius Ptolemy, no relation to the kings, is bending over a brass instrument. It is an astrolabe. He is mapping the paths of the wandering stars, the planets. He is writing the Almagest. He believes the earth is the center of the universe, and for the next 1,000 years, because he wrote it here, in this room, the world will believe him. Down in the medical halls, a doctor named Galen is studying the old texts of Herophilus, preparing to become the physician to gladiators and emperors. He is synthesizing centuries of medical knowledge into a system that will rule medicine until the Renaissance. The city feels heavy with its own history now. It is a golden age, but it is the gold of a late afternoon sun. Warm, rich, but with the hint of a coming twilight. The library is no longer just a collection of books. It is a university, a living organism that has swallowed the trauma of the fire and grown around it, like a tree growing around a wound in its bark. The scribes still scratch, the thinkers still argue, the water clocks still drip. Under the Roman peace, Alexandria enjoys a long, steady exhalation of breath. It is a time of preservation, of encyclopedias, of gathering the harvest before the winter comes. The scholars look out at the sea, seeing the Roman grain ships depart, and they believe, in their hearts, that this golden light will last forever. The wind blowing through the streets of Alexandria has changed again. It no longer carries the unified scent of salt and philosophy. Now it smells of friction. It smells of the ozone that precedes a lightning strike. Walk with me through the crowded intersections of the city. It is the late 4th century. The wide marble avenues are still there, glowing white under the sun, but the shadows between the columns have grown deeper, and in those shadows people are glaring at one another. The city has become a puzzle that no longer fits together. On one corner, you see the philosopher in his traditional grey cloak. He walks with his head down, clutching a scroll of Plotinus. He represents the old ways, the Hellenic tradition, the belief that the divine is found through logic and geometry. He smells of old dust and fading ink. He feels like a ghost in his own home. On the other side of the street, pouring out of a converted basilica, come the Christians. They are young, vibrant, and loud. Their clothes are simple, rough-spun wool that scratches against the skin. They smell of the incense of the New Age, a sharp, resinous scent that declares victory. They do not look at the stars to find God, they look to the cross. To them, the philosopher is not a wise man, but a relic of a demonic past. And weaving between them, in their own quarter, are the Jewish scholars, the people of the Torah, who have been here since the city's first lines were drawn in the sand. They watch the rising tide of anger with wary eyes, knowing that when the giants fight, it is often the bystanders who are crushed. The air is thick with the sound of competing prayers. Chant clashes against hymn. The logic of the lecture hall is being drowned out by the passion of the pulpit. You can feel the vibration in the cobblestones. It is a low-frequency hum of intolerance. In the marketplaces, arguments break out not over the price of grain, but over the nature of the soul. A stone is thrown, a window shatters. The sound is sharp and shocking, echoing off the limestone walls. It is the sound of the delicate truce breaking. The library, once a neutral ground where all minds met, is becoming a fortress of the old world, surrounded by a rising sea of a new, absolute faith. The year is 391. The season is hot, the air still and heavy, as if the desert itself is holding its breath. A ship arrives from Constantinople, but it brings no trade goods, no grain, no visitors. It brings only a scroll. It carries the seal of Theodosius I, the emperor. Imagine the scene in the governor's palace. The scroll is unrolled on a heavy wooden table. The parchment is stiff, the official Latin script marching across it in unforgiving lines. The seal of red wax is broken with a dry snap. The decree is read aloud. The voice of the herald is flat, emotionless, but the words fall like hammer blows. No person shall go to the sanctuaries, walk through the temples, or raise his eyes to statues created by man. It is a death sentence for the old world. It is not a war of swords yet. It is a war of economics and law. The flow of gold that once fed the lamps of the temples and the stomachs of the scholars is cut off. The sacred fires which have burned for 700 years are to be extinguished. Feel the coldness of that moment. The connection between the state and the pursuit of ancient knowledge is severed. The astronomer, looking at the stars, is no longer a servant of the crown. He is a criminal practicing magic. The mathematician drawing circles in the sand is no longer a wise man. He is a pagan sorcerer. The decree moves through the city like a plague wind. In the lecture halls of the Museion, the professors stop speaking mid-sentence. They look at each other, their eyes wide with the realization that their tenure is over. The state does not just withdraw its support, it withdraws its protection. The doors of the lesser temples begin to close. Listen to the sound. Boom, boom, boom. Heavy bronze and cedar doors slamming shut, locking away the gods and the scrolls inside. The silence that follows is heavy. It is the silence of an abandoned house where the dust begins to settle on the furniture, undisturbed. The old science has been orphaned, but silence is not enough for the mob. The tension that has been brewing in the streets, the heat, the anger, finally finds its release. It focuses on one point, the Serapeum, the daughter library, the fortress of the old god Serapis. It is a day of chaos. The sky is a bruised purple. A crowd gathers at the base of the 100 steps leading up to the great temple. They are not scholars. They are a tide of humanity, armed with axes, hammers, and the terrible certainty of righteousness. They surge up the steps. The sound is a roar, a physical wave of noise that shakes the birds from the eaves. The few remaining guards are swept aside like dry leaves in a gale. The great doors of the Serapeum are breached. Wood splinters, metal groans. The mob spills into the sanctuary. Suddenly, there is a hush. They stand before the colossal statue of Serapis. He sits in the gloom, massive, bejeweled, his wooden skin dark and polished, his eyes staring into eternity. He towers over them, a giant of history. There is a legend that says, if this statue is destroyed, the sky will fall and the earth will crumble. The mob hesitates. The fear of the old gods is still in their blood, beneath the new faith. The silence stretches, tight as a bowstring. You can hear the breathing of 1,000 men, the shuffling of sandals on the mosaic floor. Then a soldier steps forward. He raises a double-headed axe. The light from the high windows catches the blade. He swings. Crack. The axe bites into the wooden jaw of the god. The sound is not thunder. It is just the sound of dry, seasoned wood splitting. The sky does not fall. The earth does not shake. But something else happens. From the hollow interior of the statue, a swarm of mice rushes out, terrified by the blow. They scuttle across the floor, squeaking in panic. The god is not filled with divine power. He is filled with vermin. The spell is broken. The mob laughs. A roar of relief and fury erupts. They surge forward. Ropes are thrown. Axes chop. The great head of Serapis is dragged down, crashing onto the stone floor with a vibration that travels through the soles of your feet. And then they turn to the niches. They turn to the walls. This is the moment of true tragedy. The shelves are stripped. The 40,000 scrolls, the theology, the astronomy, the poetry are pulled down. Parchment is ripped. Papyrus is trampled. Listen to the sound of destruction. It is the tearing of skin and the crushing of reed. Books are thrown into the courtyard. Some are set on fire, creating bonfires that smell of leather and history. Others are simply scattered, carried away by the wind, blowing down the steps of the temple like wounded birds. The Serapeum is gutted. The sanctuary of the people is hollowed out, leaving only the stone shell. The sun sets on a city where the daughter library is no more, its wisdom scattered into the gutters, trampled into the mud, leaving only a silence where once there was the hum of 1,000 readers. The year is 415. The sun is setting on the classical world, casting long, melancholy shadows across the marble pavement of Alexandria. But in one room, the light still burns with a fierce, steady brightness. Step inside the lecture hall. It is quiet here, shielded from the noise of the street by thick walls of limestone. The air is cool and smells of chalk dust, old parchment, and the faint, sweet scent of rosewater. At the front of the room stands a woman. She is not young, but she possesses a timeless quality, like a statue that has been breathing for eternity. This is Hypatia. She wears the tribon, the coarse cloak of the philosopher, but on her it looks more regal than the silk robes of any empress. Watch her hands. They are elegant, long-fingered, and stained with the charcoal of her diagrams. She holds a brass instrument, an astrolabe. The metal is cool and smooth against her skin, etched with the delicate lines of the celestial equator and the tropics. She turns the rete, the moving part of the device, and the small clicking sound echoes in the hushed room like the ticking of the universe itself. She speaks. Her voice is not loud, it does not need to be. It is a voice of crystal clarity, melodic and precise. She is weaving a tapestry of mathematics and Neoplatonism. She speaks of the One, the source of all truth, and how the movement of the planets is a reflection of a divine order. Look at her audience. The room is packed. They are sitting on the benches, leaning against the pillars, sitting cross-legged on the mosaic floor. They have come from everywhere. There are young men from Syria, from Constantinople, from the depths of the desert. Notice their faces. There is a Christian bishop in the front row, listening intently. Beside him sits a pagan mystic. Behind them, a Jewish merchant's son. In this room, under the spell of Hypatia's voice, the labels of the outside world dissolve. There is no religion here but the pursuit of truth. There is no dogma but the proof of the theorem. She draws a conic section in the sand of a tray. The sound of the stylus scratching through the grains is hypnotic. For a moment, as she explains the geometry of an ellipse, the chaos of the world recedes, and there is only the pure, clean silence of the mind. She is the lighthouse. She is the last lantern burning on the shore of a dark ocean, and these students are the moths drawn to her flame, desperate for warmth in a cooling world. But outside the lecture hall, the wind is changing. Leave the sanctuary of the classroom and step out into the streets. The air here feels different. It is heavy, oppressive, charged with a static electricity that makes the hair on your arms stand up. The city is no longer a grid of logic, it is a tangle of rumors. There is a feud growing, a poisonous vine wrapping itself around the pillars of the state. On one side is Orestes, the majestic prefect of the city, a Christian who still loves the old harmony. On the other is Cyril, the patriarch, a man of fire and iron who believes that unity can only come through total submission. Hypatia stands between them. She is the friend of Orestes. She is the whisper in his ear, the voice of reason that the zealots claim is keeping him from the true path. Walk through the marketplaces. You can hear the change in the tone of the city. The easy banter of trade has been replaced by suspicious whispers. Men gather in tight knots in the shadows of the colonnades. They are not looking at the stars. They are looking at their neighbors. Listen to the words floating on the breeze. Witch, sorceress, beguine. The rumors are like invisible daggers. They say she reads the entrails of goats. They say she beguiles the prefect with satanic mathematics. They say her astrolabe is a tool to summon demons, not to measure the sun. The tolerance that once defined Alexandria is evaporating like a puddle in the noon heat. The city is becoming a claustrophobic room where the walls are closing in. You can feel the eyes watching you from behind the shutters. The shutters are closed tight, barring the light. The smell of the city changes. It smells of fear. It smells of unwashed bodies gathered in anger. It smells of the ozone that precedes a violent storm. The philosophical arguments have ended. The political maneuvering has begun. And in the center of this tightening web, Hypatia continues to teach, perhaps knowing, perhaps denying, that the ground beneath her feet is turning into quicksand. It is a March morning in the year 415. The sky is a pale, washed-out blue. Hypatia is riding her chariot through the city, perhaps on her way to the library, perhaps returning home. The wheels clatter rhythmically over the stone blocks. Clack, 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 clack. Then the rhythm breaks. A shadow falls across the street. A mob. They are not a disorganized rabble, they are a wave of focused intent, led by a reader named Peter. They block the path. The horses rear, their hooves striking sparks against the pavement. We will not describe the horror of the flesh. The Library of Whispers is a place of the mind, and some things are too heavy for words. Instead, we will describe the silence. Imagine a single candle burning in a dark, vast room. The flame is tall and steady, illuminating the golden edges of books, the brass of instruments, the white marble of busts. It is a flame that has burned for 700 years, passed from wick to wick, from teacher to student, from Euclid to Hypatia. Then a sudden gust of wind, a violent, chaotic breath. The flame does not flicker, it simply vanishes. There is a moment of absolute darkness, a blackness so profound it hurts the eyes. Hypatia is gone. The voice that explained the stars is silenced. The hands that held the astrolabe are still. The mob takes her to the place called Cineron, and there, amidst the smoke and the shouting, the physical vessel of the greatest mind of the age is returned to ash. But the true tragedy happens in the days that follow. Go down to the harbour one last time. It is night. The moon is hidden behind thick clouds. The water is black and oily, lapping quietly against the wood of the docks. Ships are leaving. They are slipping away under the cover of darkness. They are not carrying grain. They are carrying men. The philosophers, the mathematicians, the poets, the students of Hypatia. They are packing their scrolls, their compasses, their memories into chests. They are boarding the vessels with their heads bowed, looking over their shoulders at the city they loved. They know the signal has been given. The murder was not just of a woman, it was a declaration. The age of questions is over. The age of answers has begun. Listen to the creak of the ropes as the sails are hoisted. Creak. Snap. The canvas catches the wind. The ships drift away from the lighthouse which still shines, but whose light now falls on an empty stage. The great exodus has begun. The intellect of Alexandria is draining away, flowing north to Constantinople, east to Persia, west to Rome. The city remains, the stones, the statues, the streets, but the spirit, that delicate golden web of thought that connected the earth to the stars, has been torn. The library still stands, but it is a tomb now. The whispers in the halls are no longer debates. They are the ghosts of a time when a woman could hold the universe in her hands and be loved for it. The long night has set in. The wheel of history turns one last time for the ancient city. It is the year 642 of the Common Era. The wind that blows from the south is no longer just a breeze. It is a herald. It carries the fine, golden dust of the deep desert, and with it the sound of a new language and a new faith. stand on the walls of Alexandria. The marble is pitted now, eaten by centuries of salt spray. The great lighthouse still stands, but its mirror is dull, its beacon dim. The streets below are quieter than they were in the days of Cleopatra. The city feels tired. It feels like an old man waiting for the end of a long, long day. Out of the desert haze rides an army. They do not march in the heavy, clanking lockstep of the Roman legions. They ride swift horses and camels. They wear robes that flow with the wind, not armor that fights against it. At their head rides Amr ibn al-As. He is a general of the Rashidun Caliphate, a companion of the Prophet. He pulls on the reins of his horse, stopping at the edge of the city. He looks up. Imagine his awe. He comes from the clean, empty spaces of the sands. Before him lies a metropolis of stone such as he has never seen. He sees 4,000 palaces. He sees 4,000 public baths. He sees 400 theatres. He enters the city not with a shout, but with a sense of overwhelming scale. The hooves of his horse clatter on the canopic way. The sound echoes off the empty colonnades. The people of Alexandria watch from behind shuttered windows. They are weary of sieges, weary of taxes, weary of theological arguments. They watch the new conquerors with a mix of fear and resignation. Amr rides to the center of the royal quarter. He dismounts. He touches a pillar of red granite. It is cool, smooth, and indifferent to his presence. He realizes that he has conquered a ghost. The body of the city is still here, the magnificent skeleton of stone, but the spirit, the vibrant, arguing, discovering soul that once fueled the library, has retreated into the shadows. He writes a letter to the Caliph in Medina. His words are humble, stunned by the prize he has taken. I have captured a city, he writes, of which I can only say that it contains 4,000 palaces, 4,000 baths, 400 theatres, 12,000 greengrocers, and 40,000 Jews. He does not mention the books, not yet. They are there, huddled in the remaining storerooms, hidden in the annexes, dusty and forgotten survivors of the fire and the riots. They are waiting in the dark for judgment. And now we come to the final legend. It is a story told in whispers, a story that historians debate, but which holds a terrible poetic truth about the end of things. The soldiers ask Amr, "What shall we do with the books?" The shelves are still heavy with scrolls. There are mountains of them. Greek, Hebrew, Coptic, Persian, the accumulated memory of 1,000 years. Amr sends a message to Caliph Omar. He waits. The weeks pass. The desert wind blows through the open windows of the library, rattling the dry papyrus. Finally, the reply comes. It is simple. It is devastatingly logical. If these books agree with the Book of God, they are useless. If they disagree, they are dangerous. Destroy them. The order is given. But how does one destroy a mountain? You cannot simply throw it into the sea. So, a new decree is issued. The books are to be distributed to the public baths of Alexandria. Close your eyes and picture the boiler room of a great bathhouse. It is a dark, humid place, smelling of wet stone, sweat, and wood smoke. In the center is the furnace, the hypercaust, a roaring mouth of fire that heats the water for the thousands of citizens washing above. Usually the furnace is fed with dried palm fronds or timber, but today the fuel is different. Watch the bath attendant. He is a simple man, perhaps a slave. He carries a basket heavy with scrolls. He does not read Greek. He does not know that the roll of parchment in his hand contains the lost history of the Babylonian kings. He does not know that the brittle papyrus he is holding contains the only copy of a play by Agathon. To him, it is just fuel. It is dry. It burns well. He tosses the scroll into the fire. Whoosh. The flames curl around the edges. The ink turns blacker for a split second before vanishing into white ash. The words of the ancients release their energy in a burst of heat. Now, imagine the bather sitting in the warm water in the room above. He leans back, sighing with pleasure, letting the heat soak into his tired muscles. He is being warmed by the burning of Sappho's poetry. The steam rising around him is the ghost of Archimedes' mathematics. For 6 months, that is what the story says. The collection was so vast, the piles of knowledge so deep, that they kept the fires of 4,000 bathhouses burning for 6 months. The city is washed clean by the ashes of its own wisdom. The smoke rises from the chimneys, drifting out over the Mediterranean, carrying the atoms of the library away on the wind. It is the most tragic alchemy in history. Gold turned into smoke, genius turned into warm water. The fires eventually burn out. The baths go cold. The centuries roll forward like the dunes of the desert. We are now far in the future. The Alexandria of the Ptolemies is gone. The marble has been stripped away to build new walls, new mosques, new cities. The great lighthouse has tumbled into the sea, its massive blocks becoming homes for the fish. The desert is patient. The desert always wins. Walk with me through the ruins on the outskirts of the modern city. The ground here is uneven. The sand is soft, shifting under your feet. It is a fine golden grit that gets into everything. The sand has moved in. It has filled the cellars where the wine and the scrolls were once kept. It has buried the foundations of the Museion. It has smoothed over the sharp edges of history. There is a profound silence here. It is not the studious silence of the reading room, nor the tense silence of the waiting army. It is the silence of oblivion. The wind shifts the dunes. Occasionally, a piece of stone is revealed, a fragment of a column, the corner of a mosaic floor. You might bend down and brush the sand away. You see a single Greek letter carved into the rock, an alpha, an omega, but there are no books. The paper is dust, the skin is dust, the ink has returned to the elements. The Library of Alexandria has ceased to be a place. It has become something else. It has become a ghost story. It has become a symbol of human fragility. We built a temple to memory, a fortress against forgetting, and we found that fire and time and sand were stronger. But listen closely to the wind whistling through the ruins. Do not despair, because in destroying the physical library, history created a myth that can never be burned. The idea of the library, the dream of a place where all knowledge is gathered, is stronger now than it ever was when the walls were standing. It lives in the cloud of data where you hear my voice now. It lives in the libraries of the world that were built in its image. It lives in the mind of every child who asks why. The sand has taken the stone, but it could not take the whisper. The whisper remains. Let us walk now into a room that does not exist. Close your eyes and step through a doorway made of mist. We are entering the phantom library. The air here is cold. It does not smell of cedar or aging paper. It smells of ozone, of rain falling on dry earth, of the sharp, metallic scent of things that might have been. Look at the shelves. They stretch up into the darkness, row upon row, endless and vast. But they are empty of matter. There are no scrolls here that you can touch. There are only ghosts. Reach out your hand. Your fingers pass through the air, grasping at nothing, but in your mind you can feel the weight. Here rests the ghost of Sophocles. We know him as a giant of the theatre, the father of tragedy. We possess 7 of his plays. 7. But on these shadow shelves sit the other 120. Imagine the stories we will never know. Imagine the heroes who rise and fall in a silence that has lasted for 2,000 years. There are lines of poetry here that would have made you weep, choruses that would have made your heart race, but they have dissolved into the ether, unread, unremembered. Walk further down the aisle. Here is a scroll by Aristarchus of Samos. It is the one where he proves with elegant geometry that the earth orbits the sun. It sat on a shelf in Alexandria for centuries. Had it survived, humanity might have looked up at the sky and understood our place in the cosmos 1,000 years before Copernicus. Instead, it burned, and we walked in the dark, believing we were the center of everything. And here, in a dark corner, are the histories of the world before the world began. The complete history of Babylon by Berossus, telling us the secrets of a civilization that rose from the mud of the Tigris. The accounts of travelers who sailed past the Pillars of Hercules to lands we now call by different names. Perhaps on this shelf lies the true story of Atlantis, not as a myth, but as a kingdom of stone and trade, mapped and measured. This is the weight of the phantom library. It is the crushing pressure of the silence. Every empty space on these shelves represents a cure for a disease that killed millions, a song that would have soothed a grieving mother, a philosophical argument that might have stopped a war. We are walking through a graveyard of thoughts. The silence here is loud. It screams with the agony of the unsaid. Leave the ghostly shelves now. Let us go to a workshop in the mind. The air here is warmer. It smells of hot oil, heated copper, and the wet, heavy scent of boiling water. On a workbench sits a strange device. It looks like a toy. It is a hollow brass ball mounted on a pipe, with two small curved nozzles sticking out from its sides. Below it a fire burns. Listen. Hiss. Swoosh. Steam shoots out of the nozzles. The reaction force pushes the ball. It begins to spin. Whir. It spins faster and faster, a blur of polished metal, singing a high-pitched song of power. This is the Eolipile, the engine of Heron. It was built here in Alexandria in the 1st century, a steam engine. Look at it spinning. It is mesmerizing. But look closer. Look at the context. It is used to open temple doors automatically to impress the faithful. It is used to make puppets dance in the theatre. It is a curiosity, a parlor trick for the amused elite. Now, step back and look at the world outside the window of this workshop. Look at the fields of Egypt. Look at the roads of Rome. What do you see? You see muscles straining. You see the backs of slaves glistening with sweat under the whip. You see oxen dragging heavy plows through the mud until they collapse. You see a world powered by blood and bone. The tragedy of Alexandria is not just in the poetry that was lost. It is in the future that was postponed. The knowledge to build machines that could do the work of 100 men was right there, spinning on a table. But the scroll explaining how to scale it up, how to attach a piston, how to turn that spinning ball into a locomotive or a factory, that scroll turned to ash. Humanity stood on the threshold of an industrial revolution. We had the key in the lock, and then the darkness fell. We took our hand off the key. We forgot where the door was. For 1,500 years, the wind blew, the water wheels turned slowly, and men broke their bodies in the fields, unaware that the secret to their liberation had already been discovered and then forgotten in the smoking ruins of a library by the sea. Finally, let us sit down. The tour is ending. The sun has set on our story. We are sitting on the edge of the harbour in the modern world. The water laps against the concrete blocks. The city lights of modern Alexandria reflect on the waves, orange and artificial. Do you feel it? A subtle hollow ache in the centre of your chest. It is a specific kind of sadness. The Portuguese call it saudade, a longing for something that you love which is lost and might never return. The Japanese call it mono, no aware, the pathos of things, the gentle sadness of their passing. This is the legacy of the library. It is the scar on the collective memory of our species. We look back at Alexandria not just as a collection of books, but as a time when we were brave enough to try to know everything. It was a moment of supreme optimism. We believed that if we gathered enough scrolls, if we built enough shelves, we could understand the mind of God. And when it burned, we lost that innocence. We learned that knowledge is fragile. We learned that civilization is a thin layer of ice over a deep, dark ocean of chaos, and that the ice can break. The sadness you feel is the realization of our own vulnerability. We are a species with amnesia. We have forgotten who we were. We are orphans who have lost our family album in a fire. We try to rebuild. We build the internet. We build servers in the desert. We scan books into digital code. We are desperate to ensure it never happens again. But in the quiet of the night, when the screens are dark, we can still hear the echo of the flames. We can still smell the smoke. We wonder who we would be today if the chain had not been broken. Would we be walking on Mars? Would we have cured death? Would we be wiser, kinder, more whole? The waves crash against the shore. Hush, hush. They do not answer. The sea keeps its secrets, and so we are left with the silence. But listen closely to that silence. It is not empty. It is filled with the whispers of the things we lost. And as long as we listen, as long as we remember that they were once there, they are not truly gone. They are waiting for us to find them again, one discovery at a time. The fire in Alexandria has burned out. The ashes have scattered. But a thought is a resilient thing. It is lighter than air, harder than diamond, and it can travel on the wind. Let us follow the ghosts of the scrolls as they flee the ruin. They do not vanish. They migrate. Imagine a caravan moving east across the dunes. It is not carrying silk or spices. It is carrying the minds of Aristotle, Plato, and Galen, the scholars, the translators, the refugees of reason, are moving toward the rising sun. They carry the precious texts wrapped in oilcloth, tucked deep into their saddlebags, protecting them from the sandstorms. They arrive first in Constantinople, the city of gold. Here the air smells of myrrh and sea salt. But it is a different sea, the darker waters of the Bosporus. In the imperial libraries, under the gaze of mosaic saints who stare with wide golden eyes, the Greek texts find a temporary home. They are copied onto fresh vellum. They are preserved in the amber of the Byzantine court, but they are static here, revered like museum pieces, kept safe behind walls of silk and ceremony. But the journey continues. The spirit of inquiry travels further, crossing the mountains, crossing the deserts, until it reaches the banks of the Tigris. We are in Baghdad. It is the 9th century, the golden age of Islam. Step into the Bait al-Hikmah, the house of wisdom. The heat here is intense, dry, and purifying. The light filters through intricate geometric lattices, casting patterns of stars and hexagons on the floor. The air smells of strong coffee, cardamom, and the sharp chemical tang of a new invention arriving from China. Paper. Listen to the sound of this place. It is a hive of voices. You hear Arabic, Syriac, Persian, and Greek all mixing together. It is not a place of silence, but of debate. The caliph pays the weight of a book in gold dust for every translation. Think of that. A book is placed on one side of a scale, and glittering gold is poured onto the other until they balance. Here, the works that were lost in the fire of Alexandria are reborn. Euclid's geometry is translated into the swirling script of Arabic. The stars mapped by Ptolemy are given new names: Altair, Betelgeuse, Rigel, names they will keep forever. The scholars here do not just copy, they expand. Al-Khwarizmi sits at a low table, taking the mathematics of the Greeks and the Hindus and weaving them into a new language of equations. Algebra. The pulse of Alexandria beats here, strong and rhythmic. The flame that flickered out in Egypt has become a roaring bonfire in Baghdad, illuminating the east while the west sleeps in the shadows. Now, let the scene shift drastically. We leave the warmth and the gold. We travel north and west into the deep grey mist of Europe. It is winter. The year is 1000. We are in a monastery, perched on a rocky crag in Ireland, or perhaps hidden in a deep forest in Germany. The world outside is dark. The wind howls around the stone tower, rattling the wooden shutters. Rain lashes against the walls. It is a world of mud, iron, and survival. But inside there is a tiny point of light. Enter the scriptorium. It is freezing. There is no fire here, for fire is the enemy of the library. The only warmth comes from the bodies of the monks and the single tallow candle that sputters on the desk. Smell the room. It smells of damp wool, of mould, of unwashed bodies, and the distinct animal scent of parchment, cured sheepskin. A monk sits hunched over a desk. His fingers are swollen with chilblains, red and raw from the cold. He wears fingerless gloves to keep his hands moving. He is tired. His back aches. His eyes strain in the dim light. He is copying a text. Perhaps it is the gospel, but perhaps, just perhaps, it is a fragment of something older, a text by Cicero, a treatise on logic. He does not fully understand the words he writes. They speak of a world he has never seen, a world of sun-drenched forums and men in togas. To him, they are pagan echoes, but he copies them anyway. He copies them because he is a guardian. He believes that every word is a brick in the wall against chaos. Listen to the scratch of his quill. Scritch, scratch. It is a lonely sound. It is the sound of a man hanging onto civilization by his fingernails. He dips the quill into the horn of ink. The ink is black, made from oak galls and iron. It bites into the skin of the page. He creates art in the margins. He draws dragons, twisting vines, strange beasts that live only in his imagination. He illuminates the capital letters with gold leaf, catching the flicker of the candle. He is a bridge, a shivering, hungry, devout bridge across the abyss of the Dark Ages. He does not know that he is saving the future. He only knows that he must not stop writing. If his hand stops, the voice of the past goes silent forever. So he breathes on his frozen fingers, picks up the quill, and writes another line. Centuries pass in the gloom. The monks copy. The moths eat. The dust settles. But then the spring comes. We are in Italy. It is the 14th, then the 15th century. The air changes. It becomes crisp, charged with the scent of orange blossoms and new plaster. Men like Poggio Bracciolini are on the hunt. They are the new agents of the library, the spiritual grandsons of the men who once searched ships in Alexandria's harbour. But they are not searching for new books. They are searching for the survivors. Come with Poggio into the dusty attic of a Swiss monastery. The air is thick with neglect. Cobwebs hang like heavy drapes. He opens a rotting wooden chest. He coughs in the dust cloud. Inside, eaten by worms but still legible, is a manuscript. Lucretius, on the nature of things, the text that says the universe is made of atoms. The text that says there is no need to fear the gods. Imagine the feeling in his chest. It is a drumbeat of pure joy. He brings it out into the sunlight. The Renaissance begins. It is a reunion. The texts preserved by the Arabs in Baghdad flow back into Europe through Spain and Venice. The texts hidden by the monks in the cold north are brought down to the warm south. They meet in Florence. They meet in Rome. And then the final miracle. The machine. Go to a workshop in Mainz, Germany. Smell the oil, the metal, the wet paper. Listen to the heavy thump of the press. Gutenberg has broken the chains. No longer does a monk have to labor for a year to produce one book. Now, the machine can spit them out by the hundreds. The words of Alexandria, once confined to a single scroll on a single shelf, are suddenly everywhere. They are multiplied. They are democratic. Plato is on the street corner. Homer is in the merchant's house. The river that went underground has burst back to the surface, and it is a flood. The Library of Alexandria has not been rebuilt in stone. It has been rebuilt in the air, in the mind, in the millions of pages fluttering across a waking continent. The echoes have become a chorus. The whispers have become a shout. The long winter is over, and the garden of the mind begins to bloom once more. Let us return to the shore. We are back where we started, standing on the edge of the great harbour of Alexandria. But the timeline has shifted. The sandals and togas are gone. The air is filled with the sounds of the modern world, the honking of taxi horns, the rumble of diesel engines, the distant tinny music from a seaside cafe. Yet the wind is the same. It still smells of the deep salt water. It still carries the fine grit of the desert. And in that wind, for 1400 years, there was a whisper, a persistent, nagging ghost of an idea. For centuries, the site of the Great Library was a void. It was a scar on the face of the city, covered by the dust of empires, built over by housing blocks and parking lots. But you cannot kill a memory that deep. The idea of the library haunted the world. It sat in the back of the human consciousness like a forgotten word on the tip of your tongue. It is the late 20th century. A group of scholars, politicians, and dreamers stand on this spot. They look at the sea, they look at the emptiness, and they dare to ask a terrifying question: what if we brought it back? It was an audacious, almost arrogant dream. To rebuild the most legendary monument of the ancient world, to challenge the history of fire, to say to the universe, we will try again. Feel the weight of that ambition. It is not just about pouring concrete or laying bricks. It is an act of defiance against entropy. It is an attempt to heal the greatest cultural wound in Western history. The blueprints are drawn. The world watches. Nations that have fought wars against each other send money and architects. It becomes a global pilgrimage. The construction site smells of wet cement, of hot metal, of the sweat of thousands of workers. But underneath the noise of the jackhammers, there is a solemnity. They are not just digging a foundation, they are excavating a soul. They are preparing the ground for the return of the Muses. And so it rises. Stand before it now. The Bibliotheca Alexandrina. It does not look like the old library. There are no Greek columns here, no statues of bearded philosophers, no cedarwood shelves. This is a monument to the future, not a replica of the past. Look at its shape. It is a massive cylinder, a great disk, tilting up from the earth. It represents the sun. The ancient Egyptian sun god, Ra, rising from the waters of the Mediterranean. It is a second sun, frozen in stone, symbolizing the illumination of the human mind. Walk closer. Reach out your hand and touch the curved exterior wall. It is cold, rough, and solid. It is made of grey granite quarried from Aswan in the south, the same stone used to build the pyramids and the obelisks. The connection to the pharaohs is physical, but look at the surface of the stone. It is not smooth. It is carved. The wall is a tapestry of scripts. Thousands of characters from every known alphabet in human history are etched into the granite. You see a Roman A, you see a Hebrew Aleph, you see Chinese characters, Arabic calligraphy, musical notes, mathematical symbols. It is a kaleidoscope of human expression. It is a visual shout that says, "All are welcome here." It is the Rosetta Stone exploded and wrapped around a building. Now, step inside. The transition is jarring. You leave the blinding white heat of the Egyptian sun and enter a cathedral of cool blue light. The roof is made of glass and aluminum, angled perfectly to face the north. It catches the soft, consistent light of the sea, filtering it so that it illuminates the books without damaging them. The reading room is vast. It cascades down in terraced levels like a vineyard of knowledge. It can hold 2,000 readers. Listen to the acoustics. Despite the size, it is quiet. The sound is swallowed by the space. It is a respectful, hallowed silence. The same silence that once filled the halls of the Museion, but now held by steel and glass instead of limestone. The air is conditioned, scrubbed of dust and humidity, smelling faintly of ozone and new paper. You stand on the balcony and look down at the rows of desks, the computers, the shelves. You realize that the ghost has found a body. The spirit has returned to its home. The circle, broken by Caesar and the mob, has finally been closed. But this new library knows something the old one did not. It knows that stone can be breached. It knows that paper burns. It knows that a single location is a trap. So, the true heart of the Bibliotheca Alexandrina is not on the shelves you can see. It is in the wires. It is in the light pulsing through fiber optic cables buried deep beneath the floor. We have entered the age of digital immortality. The library houses a mirror of the Internet Archive. It contains a backup of the web, billions of pages, images, and thoughts. It is the new scroll. Imagine a server room in the bowels of the building. It is cold here, much colder than the reading room. The only sound is the drone of cooling fans, a steady rhythmic hum. It is the chant of the new monks. Rows of black towers stand like monoliths, blinking with small green and amber lights. Inside these machines there are no atoms of ink. There are only electrons. This is the answer to the fire. If a mob were to come today with torches, they could burn the building, they could smash the granite, they could melt the glass. But the knowledge? The knowledge has no body to burn. It has been turned into light. It has been copied and scattered across the globe, stored in clouds, mirrored in servers from San Francisco to Tokyo. The library is no longer a place you go to. It is a presence that comes to you. It is in your pocket. It is on your screen. It is in the air around us. We have learned the painful lesson of antiquity. We do not hoard knowledge in a single silo anymore. We disperse it. We make it as ubiquitous as the air we breathe. Yet, standing here in the physical presence of the new library, looking out at the same sea that Caesar looked at, you feel a connection. The medium has changed from papyrus to parchment to paper to pixel. But the hunger is the same. The hunger to know, to remember, to say, I was here and this is what I thought. The Library of Alexandria is no longer just a memory of the past. It is a promise to the future. It is a vow that as long as there is a human mind to ask a question, there will be a library to hold the answer. The fire tried to silence us, but in the end it only taught us how to build a library made of light, a library that can never, ever be burned again. And so, the marble halls fade into the mist, and the final scroll is rolled shut. We are back in the safety of our own quiet room. The fire has turned to glowing embers, and the only sound is the rain against the glass. You have travelled far, but now you can rest. The history is written, and you are safe. If you wish to return to this sanctuary tomorrow, simply leave a mark, subscribe to our quiet archives, and we will keep a chair waiting for you. But now, let your eyes grow heavy. Let the darkness wrap around you like a warm blanket. Sleep now. Good night.